Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with a comics creator that you should know if you don't know already. And you probably know who this is, but talking with comics creator David Hazan. David, thank you for jumping in and joining me on your Monday morning, my Sunday evening.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I have to ask, is that a mage shout out? That lightning bolt and design,
Oh,
or
I
is that?
no, I got it at an interactive art exhibit when I was traveling, so it's just a random shirt that I thought looked cool.
Oh, nice,
That's
nice.
all.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. I was just wondering, that sort of reminded me of like the Mage, Matt Wagner's Mage, sort of design or something like that, but just curious. All right, cool, cool. Well, I'll mention a couple of titles that you are responsible for putting out into the world. And if folks out there know about Mad Cave Studios, they probably know the title Nottingham. And actually, if they don't know Mad Cave, they probably know the title Nottingham, as well as Monomyth, which is really entertaining series. Maybe not something to read right before bed, or maybe depending on what sort of dreams you want to have, you could. And then also Drop Dead Assassin from Scout.
Yep. Um, so Death Drop is still coming out. Monomyth just wrapped and the trade is coming out as at the time of recording in about a week and a half.
Hmm, hmm.
And issue 3 of Death Drop is coming out just after Christmas. So
And I said Dead Drop or something like that, or Drop Dead. I've got it right
look,
here. Death Drop. My apologies.
nobody nails the title the first time around. It is kind of a mouthful on purpose. But it's because it's like I needed to find the funnest, silliest title I could possibly think of.
Hmm.
Um, and I just came back from a convention over the weekend, and yeah, people seem to gravitate towards it when they see it. They're like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, yeah, and really interesting premise, really interesting series, very colorful series as well. So Death Drop Assassin, Death Drop Assassin. Um, Curious about what it was about comics that drew you in, because I believe you have a history. Is it the legal profession? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a lawyer by training. I don't practice anymore. Now my focus is more on sort of technology in the legal world.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had some very generous colleagues who saw how much I loved superhero media and just started shoving books that they thought I would love in my hands.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just fell in love with the medium. I'm definitely sort of a late bloomer when it comes to reading comics. I was always sort of immersed in, ever since I think I discovered Smallville, I
Hmm.
was always immersed in sort of superhero media. I remember Smallville and Heroes being kind of like the first things that really hit me um in superhero land. And then I started reading comics sort of only, I guess, five or so years now ago now.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
And yeah, I fell in love, you know.
Yeah. It's Our episode is coming fairly close to an episode I just did a few weeks ago with Mark Verheiden, who worked on Smallville, and I think he has some history with Heroes as well. So I love how these chains of inspiration sort of come together.
Absolutely. And it's sort of an odd thing for me to say that I was like I liked, things that were adapted from comics before I ever, sort of was interested in comics, but I think that, that sort of discouragement of comics as some sort of immature medium
Hmm.
really does hit kids, and it walls them off from a world of imagination. So I hope that, whoever is a parent who might be, come across, this interview, I don't know why they would be listening, I guess, but
You
That's
never
my
know.
hope, is
You
that
never know.
people stop thinking about comics that way and just realize they're just another way to tell stories, and they're a brilliant way to tell stories.
Mhm. Absolutely. And as your work illustrates, it's a medium that a variety of stories can be told in. No one of your titles is exactly like the other one. You take interesting approaches through all of them.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I try to figure out what the, single point of difference is, and I don't ever want to sort of retread the same ground. Even in the same series, you'll realize, especially as we hit Nottingham Volume 3, it's very different from the first two. And I think we're sort of heading into that in April, so expect a big like announcement from Mad Cave soon on that. And yeah, I've never really like treading the same ground never really you know drew me in. So I've been doing I'm in the middle of writing issue 15 of Nottingham, and I feel like it's after 15 issues plus Tales from Nottingham,
Mhm.
plus our free comic book day issue Tales from the Cave, I'm always trying to figure out how to make Nottingham fresh and interesting, um, for the readers, both old and new.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Curious about the kinds of story threads that attract you when you find the story that you know you want to tell. Is there a motif there? Are there particular elements that draw you in?
Um, Specifically with Nottingham, the way I find the ideas is I just look at the history,
Hmm.
because ultimately I feel like, um grounding the Robin Hood story in the things that were happening at the time gives it a sort of verisimilitude where people are like, wow, this is so realistic. And really, I see Nottingham as sort of thinly veiled black comedy where everybody except for the sheriff is the straight man in the comedy, and
Hmm.
everybody else is sort of these like big kind of like melodramatic characters, and the
Hmm.
sheriff is just reacting to them. And yeah, so he's sort of the he make therefore makes kind of a natural viewpoint for the reader, sort of when you're approaching Nottingham. But like the history kind of gives context and gives me a sort of uh, playground to work with, that then also like gives the reader signals that this thing takes place in the real world, regardless of how melodramatic the rest of the cast is in comparison to the sheriff.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and then you take it to sort of mythic territory, very in a very titular way with Monomyth. And so I love how you kind of depart the world of Nottingham. And then I wasn't sure what exactly to expect when I opened up Monomyth. The title had me immediately. And then to get sort of the horrific elements and the thriller and mystery sort of elements that weave through in that, it's really interesting storytelling there as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the connective tissue between Nottingham and Monomyth is do not trust your heroes.
Right.
Because in a sense, they're both sort of deconstruction of myths. A Monomyth just like is sort of deconstructing, you know, all fantasy storytelling, whereas Nottingham is sort of more specific. But we try not to. I think we try not to deconstruct too much in Nottingham. We just come at things from a different angle, and hopefully let the reader um, deconstruct, with the tools that we give them. But
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
Monomyth, we're taking things apart and seeing how they work, and it's a real fun time. It's just like I've always wanted to do a stories about stories
Mhm,
thing, and
mhm.
I was like, when I landed on, well, what if stories were literally the magic that we put out into the world, um, I kind of came to the conclusion that, maybe maybe magic is, when it's being done upon you, when your story is being told, not necessarily the like brightest, most cheeriest thing,
Hmm.
uh given the sort of trials and tribulations we put our characters through. um so that's kind of me, how to me how the sheriff's story informs how I landed on Monomyth, where I was like, I'm putting this man like through the worst day of his life every single day. Just the next day is always worse than the last one. And so the question comes, why would you ever want to be this sort of like, uh, the hero in like any story? And I think that sort of uh fiending for the Hogwarts letter, uh that kind of really came from, sort of my generation,
Hmm.
uh that my cynicism, about that, especially in light of, you know, She Who Must Not Be Named. I think that's how Monomyth was born for me.
Love it, love it. Yeah, yeah. Love how the inspirations once more just come together. And I'm also curious about folks at Mad Cave, at Scout, or along the way who have been really instrumental in your journey and really helpful along the way.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Fernandez is a big one, publisher at Mad Cave. Very encouraging, throughout, I guess, the last 4 years. He was originally our editor on Nottingham, before Brian Hawkins took over editorial duties. So, he's been there since the very beginning. Chris Sanchez as well, who was, uh, our editor for the first sort of half of our journey through Monomyth, and then Chaz Pangburn. All the whole editorial team at Mad Cave is just awesome.
Mhm, mhm.
And I've had a sort of really great time working with everybody there. Scout is a bit of a different beast, in that, we sort of get left to our own devices, and that can be, I guess, good and bad. But I think having a bit more control over, um, the editorial for Death Drop was important to me, because it's a story that I really wanted to tell very specifically my own way.
Mhm.
So I definitely think that, sort of, especially since I've been connected with Mad Cave for a bit longer, and I guess since, the infancy of my comics career, that they've sort of been a lot more instrumental in, me developing my career.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And um, I mean, these are titles now that will be out in the world of comics forever and shape other creators as well. I'm sure. So curious about what's ahead in the creative journey. You mentioned another volume of Nottingham, and also curious about spaces where people can follow along and see what's cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've got Nottingham 11 should be dropping in April. And obviously it's monthly after that. And in volume 3, it's another 5 issues, as one might expect. And we're sort of dealing with, um, volume 1 was set in mostly in 1192. Um, which dealt with, Richard being away, King Richard being away, during the Crusades,
Mhm.
and what, the mischief that Robin Hood was getting up to at home, in Nottingham, and the surrounding areas. Volume 2, which was set in 1193, dealt with the kidnapping and ransom of Richard the Lionheart, at the hands of the Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI. And so Volume 3 is obviously taking place in 1194, and we're dealing with the Siege of Nottingham as Richard returns home with an army at his back, sort of destined to take England back from the clutches of his brother Prince John.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's definitely, it's definitely going bigger than we've gone before, but we're also hemming all our characters in. And everybody in Nottingham is a little grumpy, so when you squeeze them into a small space and make them grumpy at each other, it really, I really have had a lot of fun with volume 3. And this is kind of our big finish to the sheriff's story. So um expect expect a big conclusion
Nice.
to the at least the main Nottingham series.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I can imagine those characters together in a small space running into lots of conflict, for sure.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
that's what makes it fun, guys. That's what makes it fun for us.
that's right. That is right. So spaces where people can connect, and then anything that we might have missed.
Absolutely. So, best place to follow me is still on Twitter, which I refuse to call X.
Hmm.
So you can find me at David T Hazan, on there, on Instagram as well. I think I'm David Hazan dot bsky dot whatever. I don't know. Uh, how that works. I exist on there. I just mostly share collaborators stuff. But until such time as Musk decides to draw blood from stone by drawing money out of me, I will still be on Twitter. And also my website, davidhazan.com.
Fantastic.
Um, yeah, so I've also got another creator-owned book coming out with Mad K, which I can't really talk about yet, but which I'm very, very excited about.
Hmm.
And we wrapped inks on that. We're almost wrapped colors, and letters are sort of in the throes of starting across this series. It's a 5-issue mini. Um, Hoping I can get to do more. So I'm already sort of thinking about that because this has been written, finished. I finished writing June, I think, or July. So it's this one's a long lead time one, but I'm very excited about it, and it's similar and different and deeply personal. And I really hope people like it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing the details and seeing what is to come.
You, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, David. Did we miss anything that you want to make sure to mention before we close out?
um. I guess just a reminder that Monomyth Volume 1 comes out. Well, I guess the Monomyth trade comes out, I should say, December 20th.
Hmm.
Um, at the time of this recording, issue 3 of Death Drop comes out 27th of December. And issues 4 and 5 will come out next year. Um, Hopefully January, February. And then the trade comes out in May. But keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for our Nottingham Volume 3 announcement, which should come very soon. And I'm excited to give people more Nottingham because that, like, the energy of that fan base is
Hmm.
it's kind of second to none when you get your first book and everybody's like just fiending for the next one. So I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for the time, and may the storytelling continue.